Hey guys, what's going on? Really pumped today because I've got oh man, you guys are in for a treat. We are joined by Ryan Cole and Richard BG, who are part of the dynamic team that are doing some amazing work with the Hashimoto space, and they're supporting Dr. Bill Cole in their whole business to really reach a lot of people, help them with Hashimoto's. And guys, you've been crushing it the last couple months, and I want to dive into your story. I want to dive into some of the mechanics of what you guys are doing to give our listeners and viewers and our clients, obviously, some inspiration about what's possible. So guys, thanks so much for taking the time to be with us.
Thanks for having us.
Pleasure.
Absolutely. So why don't we talk about what the business looked like before you joined HBA? Talk to me about like what were you doing? What are some of the things you had tried? And give us a little bit of context, and then we'll start there.
Sure. So before we started with you, what we were doing was we were running Facebook ads to get them to opt in and register for a seminar. And then from the seminar, we would sell a consultation. And then at the consultation, we would sell our Hashimoto's protocol, right? And that worked really well for us for a few years. We did pretty well. But what we saw was over time, we had to stop doing those seminars in our hometown, and we would have to travel out of town because we just abused the space, right? So we would go an hour out, and then it went to 2 hours out in the whole radius, right? So we were just beating up these towns all around us. And after about 2 or 3 years, it really ran its course. So then we got into trying to switch from the seminar to a webinar, and we had some success at the beginning, but it was a struggle. There was no doubt about it. We would get leads coming in one day, and then we wouldn't have leads for 2 or 3 days, and then we would get them, and it was just kind of up and down. So we would get scared, and we would revert back and start to try to do seminars again, and those numbers were even worse. So we really just struggled to put everything together with the webinar until we met you.
Cool. Awesome. And I think this is a good point for our listeners and viewers to kind of let it sink in, because as you guys know, a lot of health experts love speaking, they love teaching, they love sharing their content. And I think their first go-to is like, let me speak on stage, let me do seminars. And you guys did that. And I think you've just highlighted some of the difficulties of really, it becomes a roadshow, right?
Yeah. And the other thing that we ran into was our glass ceiling was set, right? And there's nothing else we could do about that. We hit our glass ceiling like 2 or 3 months into running these seminars, and then that was it.
Yeah, totally. Like I'm a big believer. Like I think the in-person stuff is amazing, but what have you found in terms of similarity in terms of like the way you share the content from the seminar to the webinars? There's kind of a lot of parallels, I would assume, as well, right?
Yeah, for sure. Not much changed at all. We tweaked the webinar to be a little bit shorter. Dr. Cole said he loves to speak, right? So he would get to these seminars, and people would travel. So some of these people would come from 20, 30 miles out, depending on the town we were in. So he wanted to give them as much value as possible. So some of these seminars would run 90 minutes, right? So other than the length, which now our webinar is about 50 minutes, right? So that's really the only thing that we tweaked.
That's awesome. And so now you basically have a virtual seminar. Like you have a stage 24/7 that he spoke once at, and now is just working on Evergreen forever, which is amazing. Great. So talk to me about what that's enabled you guys to do in terms of like the business, in terms of just not having to travel as much, and all the benefits, I guess, of just kind of switching to more of an evergreen webinar model as opposed to the seminars.
It's done so much, at least for me, because I launch all of the Facebook ads, and now that we're on, it just runs, and I don't have to worry about creating new ones for a new town every single week, and sometimes twice a week. Relaunching, and it's on, it's good. I have so much more free time to do other
totally.
things.
Yeah, there's no doubt it freed up all of our time across the board, but it's also moving to the webinar and the group coaching model. We went from being able to see at max, and it was like 6 or 7 a day, consults a day. We would see 80 to 90 a month, right? Now, and just this month that we're in right now, which is only 3 months that we've switched over, we have just under 500 consults on the books.
It's crazy.
So,
it's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's insane.
Yeah, it's incredible. And I think this is, we speak with a lot of, I wouldn't say a lot of people, but we speak with people who live in smaller towns, right? Like in the UK and the US, and like, oh, there's no way I could help people in this small town. Like, exactly. But with what we're doing, you can help them outside of the small town, which is kind of what you guys are doing. And you just open up the whole, I mean, the world is your oyster when you have this at your fingertips.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, it's incredible. I remember when you guys were, I think, a couple weeks into the program, you posted something in the HBA group, and you posted your critical numbers, and it was something to the effect of, like, I'm so pumped about our numbers and all this kind of stuff. And I was looking at them, and I was like, wow, this is interesting, because your ROI was negative, and you had spent about $14,000 on ads, and you're celebrating this. And I thought, I'm like, these guys know what they're doing. Can you talk a little bit about that, just for like from a mindset perspective? Because I think it's important for people to understand why you were celebrating that.
I remember you actually commenting what you just said there on that post. And I mean, we were super excited because, we know that we closed okay. So, even being negative, we knew that in a very short amount of time, we were going to be very positive.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just really exciting. And we talk about that time all the time, in that moment, it was kind of like, embrace it, because everything is about to change, drastically. That was the last of our drought, at least.
That's amazing. I tell our clients, I tell anyone really, like, this model can move very quickly, or it can move very slowly. And I think you guys are an example of how fast it can go, because you guys didn't spend $10 a day. You went out of the gate and you just went for it. Are you cool with sharing some of your revenue numbers over the past couple months? Because I want people to see the growth of of what you guys have done.
For sure. So I think December, we had, like, in early December, we ran a seminar, right? We didn't have and we just had launched the webinar. And I think we didn't see any of the consults from the webinar in December. And I think we ended up closing around 65,000, right? And then in January is when we started to see those people who were buying from the webinar. And like you said, we were negative at the time because they had to schedule some time out. But then, so we went from 65,000 in December to January. We ended up having like 125 or 130 people on our schedule. And we ended up closing just under 195,000. It was like 194,000 something, right? And now this month, right, we still have the rest of today and then all of next week in February, and we're already at about 180,000.
Okay, so I just want to pause there, because people are watching this and they're like, what is going on here? Like, this is incredible to go from, and like 60-ish thousand dollars a month is not chump change. Like, most people would love to be at that level, but you went from there and literally tripled it in 1 month. And that is ridiculous, right? Yeah. Talk to us about the mindset. Let's look at, like, Richard, if you want to talk about maybe what you guys are doing on the Facebook side of things. Because as we talked about, you're not spending 10, 20 bucks a day. Like, what are some of the things that give you confidence to go out and start to really disseminate the message and maybe set up more ad sets or spend more? Talk to us about that mindset and what you guys are doing there.
Yeah. So, I mean, we've grown a decent following on Facebook. So, we have the luxury of knowing, what piece of content does well with our audience. So that gives us tremendous confidence to then go and launch an ad to an audience similar to our following. And on top of that, we also are fortunate to have a lot of content. So obviously it's never enough, but we have a good bit. So when we deploy the best winning, videos or pictures or whatever, it works really well for us. And then we just feel really confident to put a decent chunk of change behind it,
That's awesome.
Yeah. The other thing with this confidence is the closing, right? We know our numbers, which you helped us know our numbers better, right? And so if we sell a consult at even $100 or $200, right? And then we sign up 5 of those, it costs us $1,000 to get 5 consults on the book. Say 4 of them show up, we close 2 of them because we're always right about 50%. And now we're, putting in $1, getting 8 out,
Yeah, totally. It's amazing. Let's talk about that for a second, because our perfect client pipeline typically is we don't typically teach a paid phone call, but we do have a couple clients that do that. And I think it's what you guys are doing. I think it's obviously it's working great. We talked about that. No sense in changing something that's working well. Talk to us about why you did a paid consult after the webinar, as opposed to like a free call, for instance.
So that one of the reasons is that's just what we did from seminars, right? And the reason we did that was so that we were getting committed people. $97 is not a lot of money, but at least they had some skin in the game. And then so when we transferred over to webinars, it just made sense to just keep doing, because we knew that worked. But the other thing is it helps us offset our ad costs, right? So we might spend $2,000 a day on ads, but when you sign up 16, 17, 18 consults at almost $100 a pop, you're really only out of pocket $200 or $300 a day. And then a week or two later, you're super profitable.
Yeah, it's your self-liquidating offer pretty much.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I do want to put a bit of context into this, because Dr. Bill is a doctor, right?
Right.
So there is that paradigm of, I think most of us in the Western world understand I pay for a doctor's consults, right? And I think that's important to keep in mind, guys, because I don't know if, again, this is just something you have to test. And this is the beautiful thing about marketing, is you would test an idea. Does it work? Does it fly? If not, cool. If it does, let's go with it. I think that if you have the doctor credibility, a paid consult could make sense. And I think if it's something that you firmly can command, and like this is a steal even for $97, I mean, it's a steal, right? And that's something you may want to think of, but again, you don't have to, right? But these are, what you guys are doing is an example of what could be possible. We do have a few other clients that are doing it, not to the same level that you are, but I also think that their mindset is not quite where you're at as well. So, but it's a really good example of what's possible when you start to think, like my whole idea is like you take the understanding of the framework of Picasso once said, learn the rules like a pro so you can break them like an artist, right? And this is, you guys have a solid understanding of marketing and copy and all that stuff. And this is an example of like, you guys really had the fundamentals nailed down, and you kind of took something that was already kind of working and just modified it a little bit for this. And I think that's important to keep in mind as well. So that's wicked. What advice would you give to those who, for whatever reason, don't feel that people will pay top dollar for and just so everyone is clear, like you guys are helping, is it women or men and women?
It's mostly women.
Mostly women. Yeah. So you guys are helping mostly women with Hashimoto's, right? And there might be a lot of people out there who are thinking, well, there's no way, because your program is what, 3,500-ish? 45.
Yeah.
There's no way people are going to pay that for that kind of care. What do you say to those skeptics?
Yeah. I mean, we felt that way too. We were worried about that before we actually worked with you, and you kind of got our minds right on that. We were charging like 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 was our top, right? And we did, like, what we saw was when we took our prices up, our closing percentage almost went up with it, right? So we just kept taking it up and increasing the value of the program so that we felt good about it. But people pay it. I mean, if they're sick, they're struggling, they've been trying everything, and you provide value, then it's really a drop in the bucket.
Yeah. And what do you say to those people who say that, well, there's no way that's ethical to charge that amount for someone who's in that kind of condition, who, could pay $60 for a doctor visit instead? Like, what do you say to that?
Where's that gotten you?
Yeah, I mean, over long term, you're paying way more than the $4,500, guarantee it, right?
Yeah.
These people are paying $100, $200, $300 a month in supplements, right? And not getting any better. You do that over 3, 4, 5, 10 years. Where are you at? $4,500. It's what, a quarter of a decent car, right?
Yeah.
And it's your body we're talking about, and it's not a quick fix or a short-term fix. This is something that once you get right, you maintain, right? As long as you don't go back to drastically trying to damage your health, right?
Yeah, totally, for sure. So you guys had a pretty big ramp up, and as we talked about, that led to some issues, right? So what were some of the it's almost like the roadblocks of success, like when you achieve a good amount of success stuff starts to break, right? What are a few things that started to break for you guys when you started having like 400 plus calls in the books?
Well, I can tell you just on my end, having to switch schedulers, we were using a different software and that just didn't do what we needed it to do. So trying to switch mid-campaign was tough and nerve-wracking.
Yeah, through a bunch of things. And then the other thing was, because we had 2 people who are able to do consults, myself and then Dr. Cole. You sell 200-300 consults in a couple weeks, and now these people are waiting 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 weeks, right? So we had to quickly hire a team, get them trained. And what we're seeing with them is you got to be careful with, because one of our guys is really aggressive, right? And that's not like really how we do things. We're more of like a soft close, right? Mm-hmm. Conversational type close. And now he's kind of a bit abrasive, right? So we've had to rein him a little bit. But other than that, it's just like we come to you, right? You tell us what to do. And that's really what our mindset is. We just listen, right? So it has been a lot of fast changes, and we've seen some things break, but we're just okay with it.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's important. It's something we remind everyone about is like, as your business grows, stuff breaks all the time. And you should actually look forward to it breaking, because if we can very easily self-sabotage, where it's like, well, if I don't want to hire people, then I'm not going to grow. So I don't have to hire people ever. Right. And then you get stuck where you're at and you never move forward.
Yeah, that's the other thing we're seeing. Like, we have to be okay mentally with like watching our income go up, but we also then now our overhead, because we want to keep growing. Right.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Mental battle for sure.
Yeah, totally. So, I mean, like, it's amazing. Like, where do you guys see the business? We talked about this obviously privately, but where do you guys see the business in the next year? Because I think it'll give some really cool perspective and inspiration to everyone kind of listening on this.
That's a tough question for me, because I think probably bigger than my other 2 partners here, Rick and Dr. Cole. I mean, man, we don't see any limits. That's really the easiest way we could put. The Hashimoto's is one of our niches, and we're going to work and optimize and really fine tune this process. But then it's just on to the next niche, right? And then on to the next sales team, and then it's just forever, right?
Yeah. But you guys are not doing like $1,000 a month and then jump and ship. Like, you guys are building, you're drilling this oil well first, really getting this machine going. And then if you want, you can move to the next thing. And I think that's super important to think about, is like, a lot of people, I don't think see the success in business, not just, I think in general, because they're always jumping on the next thing because they haven't given it enough time to really figure it out. Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what we did for the first 2-3 years. Even though we had some successes, we would try something and see some success, and then hear somebody else tell us to do something, we'd jump right over that. And it was just like, we never really made progress doing that. And it was about like 6 to 8 months of really just committing to the webinar, right? Before, and we got scared a couple times, and we made some bad calls because of us getting scared, but it was about 6 to 8 months before we were just like, look, this is it. This is what we're going to do. We're sticking to it. And then a month or 2 later, now we're, where we're at.
Yeah, it's amazing. What were some of the other things you had done before? Like some of the different tactics and strategies that...
Like 3+ shipping offers. I mean, what other, any of the typical, if you're in the ClickFunnels world, Russell Brunson offers, we tried them all.
Yeah. I mean, Russell's obviously a great guy, but I think it's important to, and I tell this to, like, I've pretty much, I personally, in my other business, as well as this one, I've probably done every single business model, strategy, tactic you can think of. And I remember the one that really broke the camel's back was, we had a cookbook launch years ago in my health business, and it was a 3+ shipping offer. We had 9 different upsell flows, each upsell flow testing 4 different upsells, cross-sells, downsells, the whole bit. And the whole purpose was to move the average cart value from $18 to $21. And I'm like, what is going on here? Why am I doing this? And I just sat back and I'm like, I never will do that again.
Yeah, because about 80% of the crap we did is when we started making 99% of our money.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's a sign of maturity. And I think it's also like you guys you've made mistakes, and not mistakes, but you've tried things and you've recognized that certain things just don't work, and you've had the perspective to just stick with at least one thing that does work and just go deep on that. And I think that's a sign of maturity, and that's part of the reason you guys are so successful, is that you're doing one thing really well as opposed to 10 different things okay, right? And I think that's a really important lesson for people.
And that's what your program really made a difference with, is like Ryan said, we did try Frank Kern, Russell Brunson, and so many others, and it just didn't translate into the health world. And that's kind of where you pieced those people's type of work into this world.
Yeah, right. Like if you're in our world, they're all pretty much the same types of campaigns, but what works with selling software or selling courses in not the health space did not directly translate. So whenever we were able to go through your like step-by-step thing, it just spit out answers. The second we plugged it in, our numbers jumped. So then we moved to the next piece. We went through your process, plugged it in, numbers jumped, and then ever since then we've just been scaling the spend.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I have the utmost respect for guys like that, like Frank and Russell. I think they're tremendous, and I think they've done amazing work in the space of marketing in general. But it is true, like you have to be very careful of who you model, because not everyone has their following. Not everyone has the type of business they have to do 1,000 different things. And I don't think a lot of people think about that. What do you say to someone who is considering HBA? Maybe they've been burned in the past. Maybe they're super skeptical about us. We might scam them, or this won't work. What do you say to them?
I mean, it's a no-brainer. I mean, it really is. The constant communication that we've had access to, if we get stuck on something, the answer is there. It's right there. If it's not right there, you get the answer from somebody in the group, whether it's you, Bella, or anybody else. It's a different kind of coaching program, man.
Yeah, that's the difference. Like a lot of other programs, they give you big picture ideas or concepts or strategies, and then it's up to you to go implement. And it's not like impossible to do that way. We had some success. Like when we went with Frank Kern, we had success, right? Russell Brunson, we had success. The difference was just the step-by-step, like, and then at the end, like I said, it just spits out like exactly what's going to work. Like, right, we're not copywriters, but we go through your program, we write copy that sells, right? It's just, there's very few things that you buy and they over deliver, right? Your program has totally over delivered, even not just in like your courses, right? Or your program, like the online portal. We've seen like how you do things, how you built your team, what your team looks like, and how they respond to people. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I love that. Go tell my team this is how we're going to do it. Or we hire people to like a concierge, right? Who thinks of that? And now we have that, and our patients love it, right? So it's just really next level. So if you've tried other things, like all the other things we've tried, those are the big picture ideas. If they want somebody that's going to hold their hand step by step through the entire process and basically make it paint by numbers easy, then go with HBA.
Right. Awesome. That's great, man. Thank you. And it's true though, because I think you can learn. Sometimes the best learning is just by modeling. And I tell our clients, I'm like, listen, if you like the way that we're doing things in terms of how we're coaching our clients, how we're building our team, just do that, right? Like take pieces of it. And if it works for you, that's great. Because I think, a lot of that stuff we teach obviously in the higher level luminaries mastermind, but even at a lower level, just modeling some of the stuff you like, I think it's a great way to take some of the best stuff. Guys, this has been super helpful, really insightful. I want to thank you guys for taking the time and really peeling back the curtains and sharing some of what's been working for you. I know our listeners and viewers are just going to be blown away by this. So guys, yeah, you guys are amazing. Any final words of wisdom before we finish off to anyone out there who's kind of building out their pipeline or deployed it or thinking about it?
Just get out of your head. Just do exactly what the program's telling you to do, and it'll work. When you start trying to tweak it and make it fit what you think should work, it's when you don't get the results. When we got out of our own way, we followed your program, everything works. That's it.
Awesome. Wicked. Dudes, thanks so much, guys. I appreciate you. Keep up the awesome work, and I hope you guys really enjoyed this one.
Thanks, Yuri. Take care.